It's another time that we get to come and talk about speaking, public speaking, the art and business of public speaking. And today we have a guest because we are always having guests to come and share with us their stories, ideas, inspirations, and tips and strategies. And today we have a mother who has some beautiful five girls, a family that she's bringing up, and she is successful on business as well. She's a co-author, she's a speaker, and that's why she's here to just tell us how to go about it. And having a family that could be a challenge to some people to go into business or even go into speaking. And having our special guest here, who is known as Tabatha Thorell, we're going to find out more. And I don't want to take much more time because our guest is going to share with us a lot of things. But before we go to meet our guest, I would like to remind you to please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Diary of a Speaker. Subscribe to our newsletter, diaryofaSpeaker.com, where we also get this podcast going. And please remember to share with your friends. If you have questions as we are going on, ask. If you have any comment, we love feedback. And now, without taking one more minute, why don't we just go and meet our special guest today? Here she comes. Hi,
Hello.
Taba.
Hello, Anthony.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm living life and loving it.
Yes, I wonder where in the world you are. We love knowing where we are connected to other
Yeah.
speakers.
I live in Nebraska, the
Yeah,
smack dab middle of the United States.
and that's where you were born.
That's where I was born and that's where I was raised. I live in my husband's hometown, but it's just about 7 miles from my hometown.
Mm, that's
Yeah.
great. And I am from all the other way, all the other side of the world. I'm in Athens, Greece.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I've always wanted to go there. That's on my bucket list.
It's a good place to be. So, yeah, it would be great to visit here with your family. You will enjoy
Yes.
it, I'm sure of that.
Yes. We love to travel.
Yeah, and that's good. And I also love to travel and especially go to some place that I'm going to be speaking. And
Yeah. Yes.
so if you are going to come here and speak, that would be also great.
Yes. Let's do it.
Yeah, but before we go into speaking, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself because I just introduced you briefly. Now we know you have a family, but
Yep.
what's more that you can like to share with us in this episode?
Yeah, so I am married to my high school sweetheart. I met him when I was
Oh,
15 years old. So yeah,
wow.
it's been crazy.
That's
24
crazy.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have five beautiful daughters. Their ages go from age 2 to almost age 15. My daughter turns 15 in August. So
Mhm.
living the life of two teenagers, two toddlers, and one in the middle. I'm a podcaster, a speaker, a coach, a real estate investor. My husband and I also, my husband farms. So he has a family farm that we farm here in Nebraska.
Mhm.
And we just, live our life and um, build businesses, build family, just loving life.
Yeah, that sounds to be a very busy place. I mean, home.
People say that and they act, but for me, it's just we live life and it just aligns. So it's
Mhm.
a very full life. Like we have a very full schedule and we do, we have a lot of things that we get to experience and we get to do. And yes, there are moments of overwhelm. I'm not going to say that there isn't, especially being a mom and I'm the sole provider for or caregiver for them.
Mhm.
But, it just a lot. I just learned to put things in my life that align with our life, meaning the
Mhm.
purpose for our life, the meaning the impact and the meaning we want to create here on earth. God has given us a
Mhm.
lot of things, but with that comes responsibility. And I don't ever want to put things on our plate that we don't feel aligns with our purpose and our vision of life. And if we do that, then I feel myself getting out of whack. And I think other people on here, especially women, we tend to say yes to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really look at things and say, why am I saying yes to that? Is this making me feel, you know, is this making me feel significant? Is this making me feel the void of insecurity? Or am I just doing this to people please? Or am I doing this because it's my gifting, it's my calling, it's what I love to do? It will help our family vision, our financials, so that we can achieve that vision. Like I said, we love to travel. Is this for our family vision, or is this just something that I'm doing out of alignment of us? And I
Mm.
think we all have to kind of check that,
Yeah, sure.
especially as speakers, because speaking is one of those things that when you're called to speak, I know for me, when I was younger, there were a lot of people that didn't want me to speak. They wanted me to sit down and be quiet. You are to be seen and not heard, and your energy is too much, and you're too strong, and you're too opinionated, and you talk too much, and you talk too fast. And if that's you, then you have a lot of these negative feelings with that. And for me, I shut that off for a long time because I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, I want to be liked. We all want to be liked. I want to fit in. I want to have friends. I don't want to have adults talk bad about me, yell at me, curse at me. Like I don't like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I learned to be quiet for in
Mm-hmm.
some instances and play small. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
speaker, you are meant to shine. You are meant to speak. You are a verbal motivation for people. You are a verbal blessing for people. And you have to, but you do, one thing I learned is I did have to harness that.
Mm-hmm.
Not harness it in a way of limitations, but just like a horse, when you put a harness on a horse, like a stallion that's wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes as speakers, we're kind of wild with our words and we just talk and talk and talk. But when you put a harness on that horse, it calms it. And when you train that horse can run, and that horse can win awards, and that horse can be such a light for that person riding that horse, and it can give freedom for those
Mm-hmm.
people who've ever ridden a horse. So I had
Yeah.
to learn to harness my craft and
Yeah.
say, how can I let this be a freedom for people and not just me being a wild, crazy stallion, right?
Yeah. I had someone say that when they were in school, they were trouble, and everybody wanted them to keep quiet because they
Yep.
were like just how you described. I mean, someone who stopped
Yep.
it, and then he says, "Now they pay me to speak. They pay me
Yeah.
to, they pay me
Joke's
to."
on you.
The joke is new. You wanted me to
Yes.
keep quiet. Now I'm being paid to speak, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with such a busy life, how what's an average day for you? How is it from morning to evening in a few sentences?
Whew. Well, it depends on the season. Right now, we're in summer season, so my
Mm.
kids are home from school. So in the mornings, I spend time. Usually, I get a workout in. I spend time with my little ones, and we just kind of get ready for the day. I'll go into the office for about 4 to 5 hours. We have a babysitter who's amazing, who comes and kind of I have older girls, but they're in a lot of activities. And so
Mhm.
they'll help with some stuff at home, but then they have their own stuff. And so I have a babysitter come take care of our little ones. And then I go home and we might go swimming, we might go to the park, we might, just play outside. Just I get to be with them. And I try not to bring work home, but sometimes if I have something that I want to work on, like after I put the kids to bed, before my husband, like if he's getting ready for bed, I might, do a little networking or something like that. But for the most part, I try to keep my office hours in that time. I have an office away from home because I did. I worked from home for about 19 years, and it was just really not 19, I'd say 16, excuse me, 16 years. And it was a struggle because I would always be like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do this laundry. I need to take care of this kid or do this. So I had to get an office outside of the home. And so I go there and do that. And then we spend family time when my husband comes home from work. And then me and my husband have time every single night together, whether that's just decompressing the day or watching a funny movie or a sitcom or something to just kind of decompress. And then we just do it again.
Yeah, 16 and 19 is just about the same. I mean, they are not few years. They're just
That's right.
not few years. They are quite a number of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
At what point did you get into business for yourself? Is that how you started from after leaving high school or maybe college, and then you
Mhm.
went to business straight away, or did you have another career? Like you
Well,
have
I have a
multiple?
I got a degree. I got
Mm-hmm,
a degree in marriage and family studies because I always thought I was going to be a counselor. But me and my husband got involved in real estate investing when I was 19 and he was 21. We weren't married yet.
mm-hmm,
And he wanted to buy a house and he was like, "Hey, will you help me with this?" I'm like, "Absolutely." We saw it as a way to build wealth while before we were even married because we knew we wanted a family. We
mm-hmm,
knew the government probably wasn't going to take care of us. We knew that we wanted to retire early because we want to enjoy life. So, hey, let's invest in some real estate, right? So, we got he got his first house and his second house within the same year. And then we just kept building that as we had kids. I didn't necessarily look at myself as like a business builder or anything of that nature, but I did know I didn't want to work for somebody else. And I knew I wanted to make an impact. I just
mm-hmm,
wasn't sure the path. I just had to trust God on my path. And so
mm-hmm,
through the journey was just little moments where God said, "Trust me, do this." I would say I really started my business journey in 2012. I was already coaching people, but I was coaching people in different areas for different organizations. It wasn't like on my own self.
okay.
And then I got involved in a network marketing company, which I would have never in a million years thought I would do because I
Mm-hmm,
hated sales. I thought salesmen were shady and all the negative beliefs of sales and all that stuff. But I got involved with this company because they had this amazing leadership. And
mm-hmm,
because we grew in this company so fast, like they sent us to leadership training, personal development, and I fell in love with this world of
mm-hmm,
personal development. And I was like, and I see these amazing speakers. And here's the thing, Anthony, is like I was called to be a speaker. So I was always drawn to these amazing speakers. And I just like would consume it and I just loved it and what it meant to persuade people in speaking and motivating, and I just was so drawn to that. And so
mm-hmm,
that was kind of the start of the journey. And then 2018 God was like, "Hey, you need to do your own business." And I was like, "Hey, I have no business experience. I don't know what it means to market really and sales because network marketing is different than, other kind of marketing." And so
mm-hmm,
they took care of all that for me. So I was very scared, but I have learned when God says go, I just go and I do it fearful. He says, "I do not call the equipped, I equip the called." And so
mm-hmm,
I was
exactly.
called
Mm-hmm,
and then he equipped me along the way. And
mm-hmm,
it has not been easy. And it has not been this like, oh, we just have this abundance of money just flowing in and things just were awesome. No, like there was a lot of struggle, especially like in the real estate, our income properties and raising babies and having a strong marriage. There was a lot of conflict, but I allowed it to happen. I allowed those challenges to change me for the better. I was always working on me. And
mm-hmm,
along came this voice that said, "You are supposed to be a speaker.
mm-hmm,
You have the gift." Like, but you need to harness it. You need to train. And nobody wants to ride a wild stallion.
yeah.
And so I had to train it. So I invested in some different mastermind groups, some different courses. I would watch and consume more and more speakers. I love different pastors because I love how they can transform people.
Mm-hmm,
So I just would watch and listen. And I was training my craft all the while I was working on my coaching business side of things. So I was working on the business of that, but my craft of speaking.
I love how you got into. It's like I got that's how you got into speaking in the network marketing, because also I got into network marketing for the fact that there's gonna be personal development and there's gonna
Yep.
be speaking. I'm gonna
Yep.
stand on stage and talk to people. That's
Yep.
what excited me to get into network marketing,
Yeah.
which I did, and it gave me stages. It gave me
Yep.
some experiences that I value up to
Yes.
this day. Uh,
Yes.
was that actually where you started, or what was your very first? If I can ask this, what was your very first speech that you ever gave, and you can remember, and you can recall it? How was it?
It was probably, I mean, honestly, like if I look back, like the very first time was giving a presentation in my network marketing business, like
Mm-hmm.
going out there and presenting these products
Mm-hmm.
because I just had a natural ability to go up and take a product and speak on it in a deeper level than just saying, hey, these products are going to cause weight loss or sports development or, whatever. Like that was really organic for me. I would say that was like my presentation, and I was really scared. Again, I wasn't scared to talk about the product. I wasn't scared to talk about it. Was the sales part of it, because
Yeah.
remember I had a lot of limiting beliefs about sales. And so when
Mm-hmm.
it came to like the price of that, but if I would have merged that earlier, but that was my growing. See, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know that sales didn't have to be sleazy, and that to get people on these amazing products that I was taking. And it was about health and nutrition and transforming the body so that the mind could be transformed. And I would talk about that. And then the money would come up and I'd like freeze up because I had all these limitations about money.
Yeah.
And so that was really, but I mean, I was already like instructing people in group exercise. And so I would always have like just this random speech, of like motivation, but like that first speech of, giving up and giving a presentation in front of people that was there. And then I remember being asked to talk, in front of a bigger group in the organization and talk about what it meant to be like a champion, and I was like, so nervous. I was like pumping myself up, and it just organically happened because I had trained myself. I was still a little bit of a wild stallion,
Mm-hmm.
but because when I'm passionate, so when I get in a passionate roar, it can just like snowball. So now that I'm more trained, that passion can be contained for transformation more
Mm-hmm.
than just me ranting, right? Like more than me just like going on a rant. So now it's more transformational for that person because it's about the person receiving it.
Yeah.
See, I can give a speech for me to feel good about myself, like, good job, Tab, you did a good job. Or
Mm-hmm.
I can do a speech so Anthony and your audience can be transformed for themselves.
Mm, exactly. Wow, wow. This is wonderful. I am loving every bit. And I believe that our viewers or listeners are also loving it. Now, if you're out there and you're listening to us or you're watching us right now, you can always shoot a question to us.
Mhm.
And even if you get to watch this after we've recorded it or listen to it, we would appreciate your feedback on what it is that you're getting from this episode. And we thank you, Tabatha, again for coming.
Yes.
And we still got some time to go and a lot to share, as I can tell from
Yeah.
what it is that you're offering. Now, you talked about you watching many speakers in the business, also in the personal development field. Which
Yep.
could be some of your favorite speakers? I would love to hear that.
Whew. Well, TD Jakes is a
Yeah.
pastor who is
Hmm.
just, I mean, I could listen to him all day, every day. Like, I mean, even just interviews of him. I just would watch even interviews and how he would interview. And I just love him for sure. Stephen
Hmm.
Furtick's another great one, very passionate. I'm drawn to passionate people because that's, who I am called, that's how I'm wired. Of course, Tony Robbins, I mean, he has honed his craft in the way that he can move an audience is just transformational.
Mm.
Like, so for me it's like looking at these speakers, and there's a lot of speakers honestly that I've watched that have been like, I don't want to say no name speakers because that does not give them enough clout, but people that maybe not, that don't know them, just different TEDx talks and how people talk in those moments compared to other stages. Brene Brown, she did a TEDx talk, but then she did a whole series on, or a whole documentary on Netflix, and like how she speaks. I was looking at like women. So I'm just constantly even people that maybe I don't even know their name, but I see them speak and I'm like, wow, like I love how they did this, or maybe I don't know that. And if you're on here and you're called to speak, you know that you look at everything in the eyes of a speaker. And so even when I go to like a church service of a church, my church, other people's church, I am constantly like, oh, they could have done better, or
Mm.
oh, that was awesome, or ooh, if they would have done this, they could have really transformed. Because I'm all about transformational
Yeah,
speaking,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
because that I feel is why we're called to speak. We're not just called to talk up there and, hear ourselves, or,
Mm-hmm.
just sell a whole bunch of stuff. We're here to transform people, to transform our mind,
Yeah.
renew our mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so whenever I listen to people, whether that's a commencement speech or something that pops up on YouTube, or if I'm sitting at a graduation over here or a church service, I am always listening in the way of like, man, you could have really impacted better. Not, and this isn't a judgment thing, and this is not me
Yeah.
saying like critiquing every little thing,
Mm-hmm.
but just because it's my craft, I hear it. Other people don't. If you're not a speaker, you don't hear that.
Yeah,
Just like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
musician will hear a song and they'll say, ooh, it could have been better if the hook was over here, right?
Uh-huh.
Like we all in our craft, we hear those things. So I'm constantly looking even at like reels and shorts and on Instagram, and hearing the way that people speak and what is enticing to them and what's motivating for them, to get them to transform.
Yes, you can always notice that if that's your field, that's something that you've
Yep.
been occupied with for hours and hours. You can always, I mean, and you see someone come on stage and starts to speak and makes all the mistakes that you can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, where's this guy from? I mean, hasn't he had some time just to practice his speech, or maybe some uh,
No, they're
idea
the
of
wild
how he can
stallion.
be trained or mentored or something like that? Hey, we notice it.
Yeah. Yep. They're the wild stallion and we give them grace. But like, if you are going to do this, even on a
Hmm.
podcast,
Yeah.
because a lot of my speaking engagements are on podcasts, and that is a speaking engagement. You are
Yes. Yeah.
speaking. It's different, but it's a speaking engagement. But people sometimes treat podcasts like, yes, it's a casual conversation, but you still need to engage the audience. You still need to have tonality with your voice. You still need to paint a picture and
Hmm.
give things like just how I gave you the visual of the stallion. And
Yeah.
if you recognize this, I keep referencing back to that,
Hmm.
because that is like, if you are that wild stallion that somebody, told you that you should be a speaker, you talk a lot, or maybe you shouldn't be a speaker because you talk a lot, but it's harnessing that. So like as a speaker, even in a podcast, and I hear a lot of people and even hosts, and they will take down the energy. And the thing with podcasts are people are usually listening to podcasts while they're working out, while they're doing laundry, while they're on their way to work, or,
Hmm.
my husband's in the tractor in the field and he's listening to podcasts. You need to bring that energy up,
Yeah.
like with your voice, and do those things, even if they're not watching you. And so
Hmm.
know that every piece that you do to bring yourself to that. And I'm constantly like, how can I be better? How could I have told more stories? How could I have changed my energy, my tonality of my voice? And every single podcast that I do, whether I'm on a physical stage or a virtual stage or with you just talking, it's always like how I can make that better, because we can all improve and we can all
Hmm.
progress.
Yeah, they say that improvement is the biggest room in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So uh, at some point you talked about some limiting beliefs, and this is when you gave the example of a network marketing
Yep.
experiences that you went through, and you're afraid to talk about the figures, the
Yep.
numbers, the money, and
The money.
and that's not the only thing that prevents us or scares us. I
Yep.
believe you've also some other limiting beliefs. How do you work out from your limiting beliefs? How do you overcome them?
You just go head on. I think for me, I always had a vision of life more and abundant than what I had, which was
Mm,
lack and struggle because of the way that I was raised. I was the youngest of five. My dad was a blue collar worker. My mom had an autoimmune disease. So money was always scarce. And
mm,
so that's what I saw, and that was in me. But God also showed me visions, and He would put things, I mean, even so much like, when I was growing up, 90210 was the show to watch, right? And that's Beverly Hills, and they have these BMWs in these
Mm-hmm.
houses. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like that is amazing. And at that age, yes, you do look at the material things because you just don't know any better, you know. But I also saw in that, you know, not good relationships, not good marriages. So I kind of linked those two things. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I don't know if I'd want that because I knew I wanted a healthy, happy marriage. I wanted children that I was connected with that weren't, you know, stuck up, bratty, you know, like I wanted those relationships that were solid. So I knew that early on. And then as time progressed, it was like, oh, money is just a tool. So I just changed my perspective on things. And I think that's where people, whatever limiting belief that you have, maybe it's getting on stage. Maybe you're like, no, Tab, like, good for you, but you have high energy and that's not me. And, you know, you compare yourself, but I'm not Brene Brown or I'm not TD Jakes or I'm not Stephen Furtick. Like, I can't talk like that. I can't hold the audience like that. I won't even know where to start. You know, we compare ourselves. And I just turned that perspective and said, if I'm going to compare myself to somebody, I have to compare myself in all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want one part of their life, I have to be willing to take all of their life. Well, I
Mm.
didn't want that. I didn't want their life. I just loved their skill set. And guess what? Their skill set is learned. Their skill set is developed and I can do that. Right?
Mm.
So I just turned my perspective of like just like money. Money is a tool. It is a resource. We didn't just all of a sudden cuz like in America right now we're going through a recession so they say, right? And the whole world after COVID just like has just been kind of turned upside down, right? Like
Yeah.
just everything financial and everything that but
Mm-hmm.
I can play into that and be scared and hold on to my money and say, no, I'm not going to invest because I got to hold my money because someone's going to take it. Or there's these scammers out here, crypto scammers, you know, all these different things. And I can just be scarce. Or I can look at this as an opportunity and say, the world is scared. That
Mm.
is truth right now. The world, people, they are scared. And so, how can I bring joy to them? How can I bring certainty to them? How can I use my resources, money being one of them, to impact them? How can I release money and receive it like a gift? That it's not even my money, it is God's money as a gift to again release and refurbish and invest in people, businesses, real estate. So I changed the way that I looked at things and I stopped saying, Tab, you're a wild stallion. Nobody wants to listen to you. You need to shut up. I said, Tab, you're a wild stallion. You can be trained. You
Mm.
can be trained for transformation if you choose it. But just like God gave us a choice to choose
Mm-hmm.
Him, I get to choose if I want to train that or if I want to just be a loose talking, opinionated, nobody really cares because I'm not really caring about them because all I want to be is heard. So
Mm.
much of us want to be loved, seen, and heard.
Mm-hmm.
And when I anchored that in my relationship with Jesus and my relationship with my husband and my relationship with my kids, when I was feeling loved, seen, and heard by them, it didn't matter what the world said. I said, I if I want to be seen and heard, it's for impact.
For
It's
impact.
for what I have to offer people,
Mm.
not just so people can say, "Oh, you look good in that bikini on Instagram," or "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you've had 5 kids," or "Oh, how do you talk so good?" Or it wasn't about that. It was, "Hey, Tab, what you said impacted me. It
Mm.
was the experience of you being vulnerable that helped transform me." Those are comments that I take to heart. Everything else is just vanity. And yes, they feel good. And I love accolades. My love language is words of affirmation. So, I
Mm.
mean, I love it. But at the same time, the best words you can give me are what my words did for you, because
Mm.
that's the point.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Speak for impact. Speak those words that are going to be helpful to someone
Yes.
out there when you have an opportunity. Now, I love, there's something I've picked from many of the things that you do, and the way that you've grown into your speaking is that you've been observant, you've been ready to learn. If someone is not willing to learn, then you cannot teach them. And you
Right.
need, as I good speaker, you need to be someone who's open to learning,
Yes.
observant, sinking in something that is going to help you in your
Yes.
speaking journey. And that's how you become someone of impact.
Yes, for sure.
We are almost through with our episode, but then I would like us maybe to hear from you how to communicate effectively. Now you have a message that you want to give, you want to make an impact to some
Mhm.
people, uh, individuals, or even a group. How do
Yeah.
you communicate your message effectively, such that is going to be impactful and have results?
So with communication, you always have to look, who are you trying to communicate to?
Mm-hmm.
So in the business world, it's like knowing your ideal customer, knowing your audience. Who are you speaking to? Because if I was speaking to just a group of moms in Nebraska, they're stay-at-home moms, they have, 3 kids, 5 and under, I'm going to speak to them differently than I'm going to speak to a room of CEOs, 30 to 50-year-old men who are trying to, go up the corporate ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to speak 2 different languages to them. So knowing your audience, like I'm speaking to speakers right now, so I can use different languages and different visuals because your speakers, if you're on here, you want to be a better speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's knowing your audience, and even with your kids, when you're communicating with your kids or your friends or your family, knowing that person, how you communicate. So, knowing personality types is huge for one on one communication. Like when you know how that person receives things, you can communicate so much more effectively. And see, this is where people miss the mark because they communicate how they like to be communicated to instead of how that person wants to be communicated to. So, first and foremost is knowing your audience, whether that's an audience of one or an audience of 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to know. And when it's that big, of course, you're going to have generalizations like, are these entrepreneurs, male and female, or both? Because then sometimes you do have to generalize a little bit. Am I talking to parents, or are they single young millennials? Or, those I'm going to have different stories. And then I want to bring stories and I want to bring them into it as much as I possibly can. So saying, when you like how I did in this, if you guys go back and look this, like how I said, if you were ever younger and people were telling you these things, right? Like I bring you so you can visualize yourself in the story
Mm-hmm.
because it's about you. Honestly, and I don't take offense to this, and Anthony, you shouldn't take offense to this, but nobody really cares about me. They
Mm-hmm.
really don't. My daughters and my husband are probably the most important people who care about me. Okay. And
Yeah.
maybe my dad, right?
Uh-huh.
But honestly, it's what I can do for you. You're interested in my story to see if my story can resonate with you and
Mm-hmm.
maybe cause change. So when you know your audience, you can pick those stories up a little bit and say, hey, this is the story that impacted me. If I was talking to an audience of people, which I've done this because I've done a lot of different podcasts, when I go on a podcast talking about people with addiction, I would tell you about my sister who
Mm-hmm.
was an alcoholic, right? But I'm not going to bring that story here because it has no merit. And I think that's something else that speakers miss as well, is like you don't know your audience. So you're speaking stories, you're just like throwing stuff up. And it's like knowing the audience. And don't overwhelm yourself. You don't need to know the audience so much, that you're like, oh, they're in a purple shirt, living in Nebraska, single, it's not that, because you can do generalizations, but it's just enough to get them in the story. So knowing your audience, bringing the story and bringing them in on the story. And then when you're bringing them in on the story, you have to bring those moments of ups, and you got to bring the story down, you got to bring the story up. So you have to learn to captivate and keep them intrigued on the story, because otherwise what's the point in giving them solutions in the stories? Because you always have that struggle. Like I told you guys, for me, people told me to sit down and shut up and not speak, and I did.
Yeah.
And then I got in an environment where people were like, hey, you should speak. Oh, hey, you might need to invest in a coaching program or a mentorship that's going to really harness your skills. And I had to do that. Right. So, like, I gave you a solution of wherever you're at in the journey. And then, even in that, then I had to get scared again and put myself out there and say, hey, you're going to be on 100 stages this year. Well, that's crazy because I have all this other stuff, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'm going to set a scary goal and I'm going
Yeah.
to aim for it.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. You've got quite an audience there at home with the five girls and a
Yep.
husband.
Yep.
Are the
It's always
girls
a
always
show. It's
are
always a
the
show at
girls
our house.
yeah are the girls always taking your ideas? Are they implementing? Are they a good audience?
I'm the audience when I'm at home because my
Oh,
girls are always performing for me.
okay.
Like they're always doing skits or funny things, or I'm more the audience. When my middle daughter's probably the most like me. She likes words of affirmation. And she just said to me the other day, she's like, Mom, you just have this way that you can just say these words, and I just don't know all the words. And how do you know what the right words are?
Mhm.
So they recognize it, but I'm definitely more the audience member at our house. With five girls, there's a lot of love and words and chaos and things that
I
I
can
think I'm
imagine
more
that.
the audience.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And it's beautiful. I love families.
Yeah.
You have a good family, and I
Yes.
wish you all the best in everything that you're doing,
Thank you so much, Anthony.
in your business, in your bringing up your beautiful family, just
Yes.
everything that is good. I
Thank you so
wish that
much.
it goes well for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just about coming to the end of the show, and we really appreciate you coming here.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun here. Also, I appreciate, and I believe that those who are listening or watching, they've also appreciated everything that you've shared with us. Before you go, leave us with a few words that we should always remember. I love asking that because I know there are some words that you hold up there. That-
Just remember that you are a gift. God did not do anything unintentionally. He did not make a mistake with you. He did not say success and fulfillment and prosperity can happen to everybody but you. So you get to decide to trust your gifts, to trust your purpose, to go after anything and all that you desire in your heart. There is not a mistake there. If it is of good virtue, it is meant to be fulfilled, but you get to decide that. So shine your light, step out of your comfort zone, and go out and do it.
you are a gift, and thank you for bringing the gift to us, Tabatha. Also,
Thank you.
yeah. Uh, so we are just about to sign off, and I know some people who are watching could be interested in following up with you
Yeah.
because you're a gift. You've shared much.
Yep.
We can tell that you haven't shared everything that you can share. So, for someone who could be interested in following up with you, how can they do that?
So I'm on Instagram, Tab Thorell. That's my social handle there. I have a YouTube channel, Tabatha Thorell. You can find all my podcast episodes there and different trainings and things like that. You can DM me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm on both of those as far as social channels. And then keeplegacywealth.com, or if something simpler, tabthorell.com. Those are my two websites that are really where you can find me, any of my new stuff, any of my freebies. I think my Tab Thorell website, I have all of my in my vault, like over the last 16 years of coaching, all my freebies are on there. And if they're not, they'll be getting on there. I always kind of have to check with my team and say, hey, are we getting all these freebies? Because I just love to give value to people.
Wow, that's wonderful. So follow up with Tab and just go enjoy more of the gifts that she brought to this world. And
Thank you, Anthony.
she's a kind one, and we love you once again.
Thank you.
So that's about it for today. It's been wonderful, and may you have a wonderful day as you are going out there to speak. Do everything possible for you to be a great speaker. And until next time, this has been Anthony Morore, and you've been tuned to the Diary of a Speaker podcast. And until next time, bye for now. Bye.